Hey, Friendpreneurs. Welcome to another episode of Friendpreneur Fiyah podcast Unbound. I am your host, Tiffany Bargeman, founder, CEO, and visionary of Friendpreneurship, LLC. This is a business support service that connects entrepreneurs through targeted networking and live storytelling events. This podcast is one of those events, and we like to bring entrepreneurs on this platform to talk about their why so people may buy. Now, last week, if you remember, we spoke to Regina Hall. She is the founder of the nonprofit Carla's Calls. And going into Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we want to shed some light on some issues that entrepreneurs are concerned about in the industry of breast cancer awareness and the medical field that serves that population. Those who have survived this illness often are looking for services after surgery. And today our guest is going to talk with us about that. But before that, I want to shout out our sponsors because, as you know, we promote, support, and repeat here at Friendpreneurship. It is my privilege and honor to share information about the services and products that our BFF VIP Friendpreneur fam members offer. So I'm going to share with you our sponsors. You have all seen Touch of Sam. I shout her out on every podcast. This is my masseuse. And I have to make a confession. I am ashamed. I missed my appointment this weekend. If you miss a massage, you're doing too much. I have to admit, I need to slow down just a little bit because I can't miss my massages. Luckily, I was able to reschedule for tomorrow. I cannot wait to see Samantha. Thank you for being flexible, Samantha. So if you're interested in not only massage, but skincare, body rituals, and med spa services, you can visit Touch of Sam on East Millbrook Road in Raleigh, North Carolina, and she will get you straight. That's Samantha Reagan. And now we are going to shout out Shiro Community. Dr. Erica Perry Green is one of our newest BFF Friendpreneur fam members, and she is a publisher and CEO. Shiro Enterprises is her business. Shiro Publishing is a part of that. And I would love for you to reach out to her if you are interested in writing a book that is going to help elevate your business. She is the one to talk to. So there's her information, shiropublishing.com/contact. Reach out when you are so motivated. All right, two more. Ryan Ray, introducing Ryan Ray's faith-focused finance-free 5-day video course. I have taken this course. If you are someone interested in getting your finances in order, he is a lifestyle architect, finance architect, and I would love for you to take advantage of his 5-day course. It's a video course, so you can watch it and just take some mental notes, but I'm sure that you will benefit if you reach out to Ryan concerning his 5-day course. And the last one that we will share is a video. Stand by.
To learn more. Welcome to Enlighten. We are a virtual assistant platform designed with business owners in mind. We specialize in same-day printing services as well as virtual administrative support. Head over to www.beenlighten.net to learn more.
And Enlighten is owned by Katura Wicks. She's also a new BFF Friendpreneur fam member. So we are happy to promote, support, and repeat for Katura Wicks. All right, I have two more sponsors I'll show you later. But right now, I want to introduce you to our guest. Okay, so bear with me because I want to make sure I get this correct. I'm going to pull up her flyer. All right. Ari Collins is our guest tonight. She is the founder of The Intersection Permanent Cosmetics in Atlanta, Georgia, specializing in cosmetic and paramedical tattoos. Ari knows that representation matters in her industry, in any industry, but in this industry specifically, she considers herself a hybrid provider who has merged her knowledge and backgrounds to establish the intersection where medical precision meets artistic vision. Ari has more than 20 years of valuable experience as a surgical professional, and she brings a unique blend of medical expertise and artistic talent to the world of permanent makeup. As a proud woman of color and small business owner, Ari Collins is dedicated to empowering others and helping them feel confident in their own skin. So help me welcome to this podcast, Ari Collins. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Let me clear the stage right quick. I would love you to tell us more about you. Give us some background on who Ari Collins is. And then, of course, on this podcast, we like to talk about the entrepreneur's why. So after we hear about who you are, just give us some information on why you do what you do.
Okay, so I guess you could say my entire life, I've known that I was going to be medical, because if you ask my dad or my family, all I did was talk about being a doctor from a little girl. One example that he gave is that when I was 3 years old, he tells this story, and I actually remember it quite well. He says, I'm not surprised that you are where you are in life now, because when you were 3 years old, you asked me to lay on the floor because you wanted to play doctor, and you said you wanted to take my lungs out.
Oh.
Now, we know that you cannot just take somebody's lungs out because they would not be breathing. So he's like, but I could tell that I knew where you were headed with that. So it just tickles me when I kind of think back to that story, because it is true that I feel like I've always felt a direction towards healthcare. And I've been in the industry 22 years now, and I really do have a heart for patients and patient care.
Now, specifically, you have niched down to a specific audience for a specific reason. Let's hear that.
So my why goes like this. With the amount of time that I've spent in the healthcare industry, I've noticed a lack of representation for minorities from the get-go. So in 1998, I decided to go to Surg Tech school, and there were only 3 other African Americans in my class. So at the time, I didn't think too much about that because the class size was maybe only 15 people. So I was like, that's probably a decent amount of representation. But during my career, I've worked in about 9 or 10 different facilities since then. And when I step into those facilities, the scene was the same. You could count the number of minorities on one hand in the entire surgical department. So that would include surgeons, nurses, techs, anesthesia members. And so what that really comes down to is the majority of African Americans who go into a facility for surgical care will rarely ever see a person of color on their surgical care team. So when I became a first assistant, I spent a lot of time working with various doctors from, the neurosurgery background, plastic surgery background. And one of the procedures that I was always asked to help on was called a total mastectomy. So this surgery is performed to remove malignant lumps and masses from the breast, usually resulting from a breast cancer diagnosis. And during this procedure, the nipple, the areola, and surrounding skin is removed. And so this is considered an amputation of a breast. And so usually after about a year's time, a patient may seek post-surgical care. So while they've lost their breast and their nipple, there is a procedure out there called areola restoration tattoo, where we can recreate a 3D naturalistic image of an areola and nipple with custom color pigments to match a client. And so this is more known now as it's called a category called paramedical tattooing. And some of the doctors who refer patients to someone to do areola tattooing, most of them may be in the house trained, like a physician assistant, or maybe they refer their patients outside to a source like a body artist or something like that. But with all the patients that I would see come and go, I rarely saw women of color. And so that was the first alarming thing for me that I noticed, because as the statistics show, African-American women and men, our mortality rate is much higher after a breast cancer diagnosis. So in my mind, I'm like, where are all these patients and where are they going, post-care? So this really started to consume me. And I started doing research as to why healthcare workers may not be so visible, statistics about the mastectomy patients, and who's providing these areola services. So at the time, I found about 5 people in the state that I was living in who did them. But when I went to their websites, I noticed that there were no before and after pictures of women of color, Black women. And so that just didn't sit right with me. So all these revelations over time just made me feel like I need to do something about it. And I knew that after 20 years of healthcare, of being in the healthcare industry, I wanted to transition out, but I wasn't sure how I would do it or what that would look like. And so in December of 2023, I woke up early and found myself watching a movie that was based on a true story of an African-American woman in the military who not only lost her mother to stage 4 cancer, but she ended up being diagnosed herself in the show as well. And so I was completely consumed with anguish and cried like off and on for an hour. It touched me just that deeply. So I felt like it was as if God wanted me to watch that movie for a reason. And after a long talk with my significant other, who knew how passionate I was about DEI efforts in healthcare on my regular job, he not only supported me, but encouraged me to jump in. And so, armed with all my research and the new fire that I had in the pit of my stomach, I decided to embark on a path of becoming a permanent makeup artist and certified areola tattoo provider who also does scar camouflage. So 8 months later and 11 certifications later, I finally opened the doors to the intersection permanent cosmetics in Georgia. So yeah,
that's the story.
It's pretty intense, but I just felt like, having been on the inpatient side, I can be on the outpatient side and create that conduit for cohesive patient care in and out of the operating room. So I'm just passionate about finding ways to be the change I want to see in the world. So stepping into this space and shining a light on the positive impact that these services can provide to everyone really brings me joy. So helping others is just a passion and a purpose for me.
Yeah. So you say you came out armed with your research and with certifications, but you also came out armed with empathy, which I know is
Correct.
a huge part of what you do. So mentioning 11 certifications, I don't know if you can rattle them off or if they'll mean much to me if you say acronyms, I don't know, but that makes me wonder about the difference between what you do as a paramedical tattoo artist versus what the average tattoo artist does in any shop that we can go to on the street.
Right.
What's the difference between the two?
So paramedical tattooing is primarily is the medical procedure used to medical restoration. So it addresses specific needs such as camouflaging scars, restoring areolas after breast surgery, covering up vitiligo patches, and correcting skin discoloration. And the focus is on enhancing the appearance of the skin to improve confidence and emotional well-being. Traditional tattooing is primarily an art form and a means of self-expression. So most of those tattoo artists, they do have training and they do have apprenticeships, but they cannot offer medical tattoos unless they have specifically gone through that training and become certified. So if people are looking for someone to provide these services, you really want to make sure that you find someone who is certified and has a license to do so, because there are differences.
And specific certifications, I know you said there are 11. What are the main ones, or what are the ones that are absolutely required, and are there any that are optional?
I think that the areola tattooing is kind of a standard certification. Some of the other ones include just like your typical permanent makeup, because I feel like a lot of artists who are providing these services may have started out as permanent makeup artists who have certifications in eyebrows and lip blushing and things like that. So paramedical tattooing kind of branched off of that, where, we already use the same kind of equipment, which is, a handheld machine to the pigment deposit in the colors, but it is a little bit different than a traditional tattoo artist. So I feel like most people come in from that permanent makeup side, and then they go on to specialize in taking courses for paramedical tattooing.
And you came from surgical assistants straight into the paramedical tattooing. So you didn't start with permanent makeup.
Actually, I did.
You did.
Actually,
Okay.
I did. So I was still working in my regular day job and decided probably back in January of 2022 that I was going to start learning about permanent makeup, because I've always dibbled and dabbled with just regular makeup application. So a part of me felt like, well, if I can do this stuff with just regular makeup, I should be able to figure this out to do permanent makeup as well. We're just using different tools to create the same concept. So you can have temporary makeup or permanent makeup. So that's what kind of grabbed my attention. Is I always feel like I've been able to kind of see outside of the box a little bit, where I can look at something and turn it into something else. So I feel like that's what gave me that initial boost into permanent makeup, just to be able to say, hey, you can spend all this time doing something, or you can have it be a little bit more permanent. And so I actually did transition first through the same pathway of starting as a permanent makeup artist, and then being, interested in this areola tattooing. So it'd been on my mind for some years because of the industry that I'm in, but I didn't really jump into it until earlier this year.
Okay. And I'm thinking about laws now. So I can imagine a tattoo artist, somebody probably going after a mastectomy, after chemotherapy, has taken their hair, which includes eyebrows a lot of times. So someone goes to a tattoo artist and says, hey, I've been through this and I would like to do some permanent cosmetics. So
Right.
I imagine tattoo artists get those kinds of requests a lot, especially from the underrepresented community. And they may be in their own niches thinking, I need to think outside the box and maybe explore. So what laws might they consider if they're trying to move from mainstream into paramedical tattooing? They can't just say, okay, I'll do it for you. If somebody
They
wants to,
shouldn't. They could, but they should not. So I just want to make that clear, that if people are out there doing that, use caution, because you really do want to find a provider who has taken the appropriate training, and not just looking for somebody to do it who says they can do it, because as we all know, with anything, everything's not created equal. So each state has its own regulations. And even within the state, some of the counties can have variances of those rules and regulations for body artists. So I always say to suggest finding out at your state level what is required, because some states don't really have stringent rules and regulations. So they're able to get away with more things. But I actually think it's good that the public health department and things are cracking down on some of this, because that's how people get hurt if you're doing something that you're really not qualified to do. And, I guess from my surgical conscience, or just being a medical provider anyway, I just don't feel comfortable telling somebody that I can do something that I can't, because they're the ones who have to deal with the consequences of a bad result. So
yes.
Depending on your state and depending on what you're actually trying to do, it's best to check with your state and find out what their regulations are. Because while I was able to do permanent eyeliner in Colorado, when I got to Georgia, I found out my county said, no, ma'am, you cannot do permanent eyeliner in this particular county. So that was a surprise to me.
Huh, interesting. Yeah. And I can imagine that people who are seeking these kinds of services, they've already been through enough. The last thing they need is drama. or lawsuit or anything like that dealing with someone who is uncertified. So
Right.
that's why we're here today. We need to bring some awareness to this underrepresentation. Diversity and inclusion is a major factor here because we're talking about African American women, mostly, who need this kind of service. So we're going to delve deep into it in the second part of this podcast. But let's backtrack just a minute and talk about friendpreneurship, because we connected through a Facebook group, I believe.
Correct.
There was a shout out for business owners one day, and I put my information out there and you reached out. And I was so excited about it because it's nice to know all the promote, support, repeat effort pays off sometimes when somebody says, hey, I saw this in this group.
Right.
So what
Absolutely.
attracted you to friendpreneurship?
So being that I'm so new to the business owner side and I already feel like I don't have a blueprint for the lane that I'm trying to create for myself. And, again, if somebody is looking for someone like myself simply for cultural representation and, I was happy to find you for the same reason. I would like to find a coach who looks like me, who can relate to things that I've been through, who's ahead of me in terms of having business and knowledge, because, it's like with anything else. In order to be the best or better at your craft, we need coaches. It's the same as if you're playing a sport and you have a coach, and a mentor. So those meaningful connections will help you get better at anything you do. So I kind of looked at that the same way as I don't really know where I'm going to start to find who my tribe is. But when I saw you, something in me felt led to reach out. And I'm glad that I did, because here we are now. And I've already learned some great things from you, and it's going to continue on. And so I also have that. Your mission resonated with me, which was the support and repeat, because I do feel like this process can be really lonely as an entrepreneur if you don't have entrepreneurs around you, or if you don't have family members who own a business. So you kind of feel like you're at a crossroads and you're stuck sometimes. So being able to have somebody you can reach out to and learn from them, and they expose you to their network of people, like there's just so much information that you can get from being connected with the right network. And I feel like that's what Friendpreneurship offers.
Well, good. Mission accomplished, because we are here for community for sure, and also to leverage knowledge. I don't know everything. I surely do not. But what I do not know, I try to make sure I refer you to the resources. And the larger my circle gets, the more exciting it is, because I can sit in an event or be talking to someone I'm, networking with, and I'm thinking the whole time, oh, I need to connect them with this person, or oh, I need to send this person their way. That's so exciting to me, because I feel like I'm a bridge in a way,
Right.
just building bridges to elevation. People don't have to be stuck, and that's so important to me, because I've been there. I'm still there sometimes when I have questions, but now I have that network, people to tap into and say, hey, I need this, and they're like, here you go. And it's a trusted group of people, a trusted group.
Right.
That gives me the warm fuzzies. Okay, so I am going to pause here and put you backstage for just a moment. We're going to shout out 2 more sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the research that you have done and some of the findings that cause concern for you. And then think about some of the questions that you have that still need to be addressed, and how you're going to address those things going forward. So pause right here, get your sip of water, whatever you want to do, and I'm going to bring you back in about a minute.
Okay.
All right. Okay, if you have just joined, or if you are watching a replay at some point, we are talking to Ari Collins. She is a paramedical tattoo artist in Atlanta, Georgia. She owns the Intersection Permanent Cosmetics, and she has just recently joined the Friendpreneur fam as an associate 90-day trial member, which means she gets access to this platform to express her why, so people may buy, to talk about her why, so that we understand and can make a connection between what she is passionate about and how we might support her. Promote, support, repeat is what we do. So I want to shout out 2 more sponsors, and they are one more of our members. She is a friendly member, Marimi Brutus Toussaint. She is the owner of Seedling Mind Montessori School in Wendell. And this school aims to support each child while ensuring equitable access to all families. Enroll today. You can learn more at seedlingmind.com. And as a friendly member, one of her benefits is using her loyalty points to get a podcast sponsorship like this one. So she is taking advantage of her loyalty points, and I am so glad because I love to tell people about good things. All right, and our last sponsor, my travel agent, Bridget Hall. She is a travel business owner and coach. She helps book amazing trips. One of those was Jamaica in May. We had a great, great time. And she also offers an opportunity for her clients to become travel advisors as well. You can build extra income and create a lasting legacy for your loved ones by joining this exciting industry. So you can reach out to Bridget Hall, travel advisor. Her company is called See the World Travels, and you can see her information here on the screen. Let me just make sure that I am posting Bridget's info. Stand by, you guys. Okay, here we go. All right, so you can reach out to Bridget, 704-222-5350, and her email address is hallbridget78@gmail.com. All right, that's Bridget. There's one more thing I want to shout out. And now, if you enjoy this podcast, buy me a coffee. Friendpreneurship accepts tips. I love coffee. And if you are enjoying the podcast and you get value out of hearing these stories by entrepreneurs, then absolutely buy me a coffee. I will not turn you away. I will sip on that and enjoy it. Let's bring Ari back to the stage. Okay, Ari, we are back. Now, in preparing for this podcast, you shared some imagery, and I want to let our listeners know first that the imagery is nipples and areolas that I was wary about putting on Facebook because I don't want Facebook to say, hey, we got to take this down, and then our whole interview is shot. So what I have done is in the comments, I have put a link to a public document that anyone who wants to see those images can see. Just go into this discretion advisement post that I have put in the comments. So when we start talking about those images, Ari will let you know you can slide over there. All right. So meanwhile, let's get into this research that you've done so far, Ari. Tell us what you have been up to, trying to get attention drawn to these issues, and what questions and stumbling blocks you have come across.
Okay. So, I really wanted to, the hunch that I had, I wanted to find out if I was on to something or if I was only dealing with that within the state that I was in. So I just recently moved to Georgia, but I lived in Colorado for over 30 years. And so when I went looking for those providers, I said, you know what, if I feel like this is an issue here, let me just see if this could be affecting people across the country. And if it's affecting people across the country, this may also be an issue internationally as well. So I started kind of looking for minorities and, typing in different search things about Black tattoo provider or areola providers in the area. And time again, it would just come up with artists who were not people of color. So I felt that my hunch was verified in that way. And so then I started looking at the quality of their work and the images that I was seeing, because while I'm trying to get a new business started and it's hard to gain clients if you don't have anybody to work on to show those pictures. But in my gut, I was like, I know what I'm doing. I know that I can be of service to people and give them great results. But now that I'm a new transplant to another state, my entire network of people has changed. So I'm just starting from ground zero, trying to make those connections and reaching out to people. So I've just been doing my research, trying to see what people are offering out there. And even though I've moved to Georgia, it's the same. You have kind of the front runners in the industry whose sites come up, high in the Google searches, but you'll find the same thing. You go to their websites, very minimal representation of people of color, especially African American women, if you see it at all. So it still just keeps this lingering question in my mind of how is that really doing us all a service as a collective if we are not inclusive with the quality and the representation of the clients that we're serving. I still feel like that's a disservice. And so why are you leaving them out? What is it about, the dark skin? Some people don't feel comfortable working on darker skin, but I feel like the training that we've gotten, if you've learned color theory and things like that, you should almost challenge yourself to step into that space where instead of being afraid of attracting African Americans in with the darkest skin tone, that you learn or ask somebody to show you how to deliver the same quality of a result that you would get on lighter skin. But to just kind of leave us out here hanging, that just doesn't sit well with me. So I'm trying to step into that space and say, hey, for those who are looking for someone who can relate, who has that cultural sensitivity, but also the added benefit of my medical background, I just feel like it encompasses a whole different feel for that client who might come to me instead of just having a doctor say, oh, here's so-and-so's business card, go see them. Because what can happen is they go there and they're already apprehensive because they're like, I don't see any pictures on your site of who you work on that looks like me. So, am I going to get the same result? And so while that is a thing, the issue that I'm struggling with is, hey, I want you over here. I want to help you over here. But if people don't know who you are and they don't know you exist, it's hard to kind of intercept people and get them to come to you. So that's also part of why we're discussing this on this show, because I just want to raise awareness that, when it comes to things like that, there are some people who just are going to feel more comfortable. And it's not something that the providers should get upset or offended by, but it's like with any other rule in patient care, knowledge is power, and people should have all the knowledge, to say, okay, well, we have 3 listed providers, right? Like when you go to a primary care office, you might have 7 or 8 people in the office that you could try out to decide who works best for you. But when you get into a specialized area like this, where you already don't see much representation, you're kind of putting your trust into this person. And it's not to say that they will do a bad job, but it's in their mind. It's in the back of their mind going, it would be nice if I found somebody who looks like me and could do what I need them to do. And I think we need to have that conversation that says, even if nobody really has brought this to the table, let's have the conversation, because we need to be all inclusive in this space as well, being able to offer providers, who can, I don't want to say cater to, because our job is to cater to everybody. But for those who are looking for that option, they should be able to find it or have easier ways of accessing that person without having to fly out of state to go see somebody. But if they want to, they should have that option as well.
Yeah. While you were talking, one word jumped out at me, and that was challenge. In the D&I space, many, many, many companies, I know the company I work for, we have a whole D&I department, right? Other companies are doing the same things because these issues are important. Inclusivity is important. I wonder if, and this just came to mind when you said the word challenge, if you reach out to providers and say, hey, I was on your site and I noticed that there wasn't representation for African American women on your examples of the services that you provide. Do you have any? And if they say no, would they be willing to participate in a focus group so you could delve deeper into their why, find out why there's not representation within their practice, and then invite them to a workshop where you're actually showing, if this comes up as one of the reasons, showing how to mix the pigmentation for those darker skin tones or whatever, so that you are serving the community that needs that knowledge and expanding that knowledge for them when they say, hey, we do need to be in that space, but we haven't done it because of this. So you're going to help us. Let's do it. That might be an approach to take from the D&I.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have no problem doing that. So that's kind of part of what this is about too, is you start with one idea in mind, and then it becomes, a pivot, and then you pivot another direction, and then you're like, oh, I didn't even think about this, or maybe let's take it to another level. And like, as far as I could take this idea, that's as far as I want to take it. Because while I know that, even though I kind of stumbled into this while I was living in another state, the fact still remains that this is, this echoes nationally. This is still a thing. So it's one thing to just say I'm the number one provider in the state, but provider to who? We need to be all inclusive, and that's not what's being represented in your clientele of pictures. So that's where I challenged them and the doctors to say, we can't just stay in this comfortable space because that's what has worked. Because at the end of the day, breast cancer affects everybody. And it, like I mentioned earlier, our statistics are high. And so that just leads me to believe that, where's everybody going? Are they just not going to somebody because they don't see who they want to see? Or maybe they just don't feel like going through another surgery or a procedure. But at the end of the day, if we can look at different nationalities of representation across all industries and all spaces, when it comes to things like this too, even if it only takes one voice to bring it to the table, if there's facts to support that, then that does leave room for conversation.
Absolutely. And I can imagine a focus group for not only providers, but for patients, because those questions that you're asking, you might want to start with them to say, hey, why don't you go and have this service done? And then when you find out that your hypothesis may be correct, go a little further. But the questions that you've documented that we're going to talk about soon in a few minutes, those questions I feel like could be focus group questions that you can get answers directly from the patients and the providers for, at least to take you to the next level to answer. Okay, so I would like to know about mindset here, because when it comes to encouraging patients and also encouraging providers, we've just talked about D&I. So in my mind, I'm thinking mindset has to be exploratory and open and inviting to people who you normally would not cater to. What is the mindset you would like providers to have when it comes to your industry and how they might be involved to elevate their businesses?
So I think the first thing is, it's real easy to get comfortable in the way you always do things. And sometimes people don't like change. And so, it's like, well, here's this new girl coming around with all this information, stirring the pot and trying to say, hey, include me, include me. And it could be a lot of no's simply because they may not have the will or the desire to even tackle the problem, because look how much effort I'm putting into this thing and I'm exhausted on my own. So, I feel like I could have all the passion in the world, but if I really can't get my message across, or, find doctors that are open and receptive to saying, you know what, let's look at this. Let me put some time away and let's actually deal with this issue, instead of it just kind of being like another thing they have to try to squeeze time in to have a meeting. But it's important. It matters. We matter. Our representation matters. So it may not matter to you because you're comfortable. It may not matter to them because they already have a provider who looks like them that they can go to. But what about the rest of us?
Mhm.
And if you're talking about being a front runner or pioneering or saying, we're all inclusive, show that. Put your money where your mouth is. Let's see what your provider group looks like.
Mhm.
And if you do realize that you have a gap, then you know what? Just be honest and be like, you know what? Maybe I never even thought about it, but here you are bringing this to the forefront. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So I feel like I've had a couple conversations with some doctors that I just met in the WellStar system out here in Georgia that seem to be receptive to this conversation, but at the same time, being receptive and talking about it is one thing. Let's put some action behind this and actually close this gap.
Yeah. And the action could be partnering with them, collaborating with them on a focus group with some of their patients so that they can
Right.
see the value of investing their time and effort and money into partnering with you. If initially they can get their questions answered as well, it would open
Right.
some doors. Yeah.
I had one doctor tell me that he has a provider that he uses, and that she actually said to him she didn't feel comfortable working on darker skin. So
Wow.
I went, okay, at least she's honest, but that
Yeah.
just goes to show you right there that if that is a mentality that's floating around out there, then you're making a choice
Hmm.
not to be inclusive.
Yeah.
And
I wonder
so
why did she give him a reason?
I think so when we talk about a Fitzpatrick scale, we talk about skin tones. So a
Hmm.
Fitzpatrick scale 1 all the way to the darkest skin tone, which is a Fitzpatrick scale 6. And so what we deem as women of color ranges from Asian to Middle Eastern to, biracial to Black and African descents, they
Hmm.
fall into the category of 4 to 6. And so, you got your redheads who are like a skin type Fitzpatrick 1. And then so I feel like most of the patients who are being represented on these websites for before and after, they
Hmm.
fall on the lighter spectrum. So it's the darker skin tones between 4 and 6 that don't really have the representation. And that's who we need to focus on and drawing them in so that we can see the results. So
Yeah.
whether they go to me or whether they go to somebody else, they should still be able to see some results, and not just by 1 or 2 providers in the whole country. But this needs to be a thing where if you don't have the training, get the training. If you want to be better, find somebody to help you become better. Like you said, follow somebody who is doing it and have them teach you the ways. Because what I feel like happens is it's much easier to see the 3D depth definition in lighter skin tone when you're using various colors. And what
Hmm.
happens is you kind of go from a 3D image on their skin tone. And then as you get to a darker skin tone, it starts to turn into 2D. So we
Uh-huh.
need to be able to figure out how to create the same level of realism and not have us come up short in this area simply because you don't know how to choose the correct colors for our skin tone.
Yeah. And this is where that word challenge comes in again. I can imagine a flyer in a doctor's office, a provider of post mastectomy care that says, hey, do you like a challenge? And spend a day in a workshop learning how to mix the proper colors with all of your lingo that you're using that will attract their attention. Because if they know they could go into a workshop and spend a few hours and come out with the confidence to serve yet a broader audience, that might be incentive for them because they're expanding their clientele. They're not just learning something new, but they're taking their business to another level, being able to serve more clients.
Right. And what I noticed, even in the courses that I'm seeing, I think that's adding to the problem is that you're not even doing demonstrations on women of color.
Hmm.
So this has many layers to it. So from the courses that we're taking to not seeing representation in case studies to the practice skins, as what they call it, do
Mm-hmm.
not vary in pigment depth.
Yeah.
So it already is setting people up for failure in this instance where from what you're practicing on is not dark skin, to the lessons you're learning online from the people who are teaching it are not on dark skin. So
Yeah.
I can see full circle where there's lots of work to be done here.
Yeah. So even in the courses that you're taking, the online courses, there's some information about who's produced that course, right? Have you
Yes.
contacted them to say, hey, I don't see this. I'd be willing to supplement your course with this information. Have you explored that
I
option?
have not, but that's a great idea.
Things are coming to me now. The juices are flowing. Because I mean, I know what it's like when I'm looking at a course. At the end, there's always some information about who to contact, so that's another option. You may be the one to teach and demonstrate, not only, to contact people about this information, in the D&I space, but to actually be the one to help close the gap by doing
Right.
the work. And you
The
are one person. You are one
right.
person. So this is where networking comes in with people in your own industry. Remember the young lady we talked about who's in Durham? I think her name is Kendrika. I don't know her last name, but she's in Durham, North Carolina. And when I was talking to someone else about your show, they mentioned her name. They said, I know somebody who does that in Durham. So connecting with these people who probably have a lot of the same questions that you do, there's strength in numbers.
Right.
And I don't know, collaborating on a workshop or a focus group, that will definitely just add some more strength to your mission.
Right. And with us being in different states, that's something that she could, I don't know how she's choosing to market, or if she's having a lot of success, or if she is getting, people who are not women of color coming in as well. Because I also feel like, while we have these other issues to address, you're helping who's coming to you.
Right.
And you can't necessarily control who that is. So I think it's important for, like you said, anybody who's involved in that to start really looking at these issues and picking them apart and seeing how we can serve everyone and deal with the issues at hand without making anybody feel like they're excluded from this type of a care, because some of us are out here and we're trying to find you just as much as you're trying to find us.
Yeah. Call to action, public service announcement.
Right.
Maybe that's another option. Public service announcement to reach these providers, public service announcement to reach these patients. Okay. So there's a series of questions that you have documented. And I explained catalytic questioning, which is something I learned about in my day job. And it's a methodology, a powerful methodology for finding the right question so you can get on a more strategic path to solve your problem effectively. We can be busy, busy, busy. Yeah, we do a lot of stuff every day, all day to get our work done. But effectiveness is different from productivity. So if we can drill down to the root question, so that when we do approach someone and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing a focus group and I want to find out this specific information, then time is not wasted, energy is not wasted, and people come away with what they've expected. So the questions that you have posed, let's look at them for just a moment, because some others may come to mind, but let's talk about them. The first one, you say, do women of color who are breast cancer patients know about all of their options post breast surgery, mastectomy, or top surgery? That was the first question that came to your mind. Do women of color know about paramedical tattoos? That's another one. Do they know it's possible to find a woman of color tattoo artist who can provide comprehensive and cohesive services such as areola restoration, tattoo, and scar camouflage? Number 4, and after I've gone through these 9, I want you to hone in on one or two of them that you can do something about immediately for whatever the next step is. Number 4 is there a provider registry or national database? 5, what percentage of art costs do medical insurance companies cover? 6, how many insurance providers are covering art? 7, what percentage of patients are paying for art out of pocket? And And when you're saying art, you're saying areolar restoration tattoo. That's interesting that
Correct.
that works out to be art. I love it. 7, what percentage of patients are paying for art out of pocket? Number 8, are artists who perform art trained on all skin types? If not, why? And number 9, why are latex practice skins mass produced as a light skin tone? Why are latex practice skins mass produced as a light skin tone? Okay. Which of these questions, and I know you had them coming to mind and documenting them as you wrote them, but which ones jump out as something that you can tackle right away? 1 or 2?
I think I have not really seen this, and it's something that I do feel like I can put energy behind, is creating a provider registry or national database. To, for the research that I've done, I can start with who I've found. And then maybe another call to action is, hey, if you're a woman of color provider and anywhere in the country, get a hold of me so I can start listing you in this database. And I think by doing so, even if the doctors don't know who's out there, we could even provide them a link that says, if you're in this state, then go access this website and at least see who may be available in your area or who is closest to your location, so that if people want to make a short trip, they can.
Yes.
But I think that's one of the things that I can start to do and collaborate with 1 or 2 other people and start kind of maybe starting on the West Coast, and little by little, I just go through every state and see if I can find somebody, and hopefully by end of 2025, we can have a decent database of a registry for providers who are women of color or people of color.
Yeah.
The second one that I actually have already kind of put some energy into is contacting these wholesaler, even though a lot of these production companies are not US based, I have an interest in trying to see if somebody will work with me to start developing different skin tones of practice skin.
Okay. So when you say practice skin, are you talking about like a CPR dummy?
Yeah, it's the same concept. It's like latex. It's like that same material of a dummy, but it's just flat. It's like smaller than the size of an 8 by 11 piece of paper. And that's a lot of how we practice permanent makeup techniques on, and areola tattooing. So and it just seems like everything comes in this one skin tone. And I'm like, whose skin tone is this? This don't match anybody. But this is what is out there in mass quantities. And I just turn my nose up every time I see that. Like, that's part of the problem too.
And I know what you mean. I remember back in the day when I was singing in the choir in high school, and they would tell us, okay, everybody, all the ladies wear nude pantyhose. So we can look
who's nude?
Exactly. Now I'm thinking, okay, the darkest skinned girl in that choir came in with those, not her skin color pantyhose, and it looked so terrible. That was my first exposure to what nude meant, and it's not the same for every woman. It is so different. So this is the same idea, same concept. Whew. Flashback. Okay, so let's talk about any other of these 9 questions. Those are the top 2 that you can do something about: directory and what do you call that? The latex practice skins. So getting in touch with the people who produce those and getting to their D&I people, if there are any.
At least start the conversation, because if it can be done for somebody, then again, it's that conversation that they haven't had to have yet, where somebody's like, hey, what about us too? And what would that look like? What are the steps that would be involved? And I know that it probably isn't something I could change right away, but at least I could have information on, okay, this could be a goal that I might not be able to achieve right now, but it's still on my radar to come back to it. Because if we're looking at all the angles of this problem, it even goes to being comfortable practicing on a darker practice skin, because the colors are going to show up different. They just are. So if you never have a chance to play around with those colors, or you don't have a demonstration model who's of, a darker skin tone, you're not going to feel comfortable. You're not going to be prepared. And then you're just probably not going to go out of your way to market or accept, people coming in with a darker skin tone, because you're not sure if you can produce the correct result.
Yeah. And it's a confidence thing. And the providers probably don't want to step outside that comfort zone, because then they'll be held accountable for the services that they do provide.
Absolutely.
And if they're not confident providing it, I get it. So it comes back full circle.
And what I find that I've had to do, I didn't put this question on here, but it kind of goes along the lines of the practice skins not matching us. Even with the pigment sets that they say are for areola tattoos, they don't cater to our colors. And so that's why I think it is important to find somebody who has taken the time and experimented with color blends, trying to get something closer to our skin tone, because most of what comes out of those bottles does not match us. And I ended up buying a pigment set that probably had 10 to 12 colors in it. And out of those 10 to 12 colors, only three of them were on the darkest side of the spectrum. And then when I looked at it, I was like, well, that doesn't match anybody either. So I feel like they're making attempts, but it's kind of like when you think of Rihanna's makeup line. Look at how vast of a color selection she has. And I'm not saying that we can do that for every single shade, but we need to be able to say, even though you've been kind of catering to this, population for a while, it's time to start looking at broadening the color spectrum of options for this service, and not just who you've normally been taking care of. So there's lots of work to be done.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And strengthen numbers. Again, strengthen numbers. If you can, with that provider directory that you could start with, create that network of people who have the same concerns. I just believe the sky is the limit after that. It won't be you feeling like you're alone on an island anymore, screaming from the top of your lungs, this is an issue. Anybody out there? I think you can definitely find strength in those numbers. So the networking, I think, is key. Let's see. I'm going to put you backstage one more time, because I want to make a few announcements. And when we come back, I would like you to leave Friendpreneurs with something to ponder this evening and this week. And we're also going to make sure they have your contact information, because somebody watching or who catches this replay may think, I know somebody who can help her with this networking, or someone who may be able to get her in touch with this provider. So let's just make sure we leave that contact information at the end. Before we go, is there anything specific that we have not covered that you would like to?
No, I feel like we've covered a lot.
Yes, we have. We have. All right. So I'm going to put you backstage. Be thinking on that last comment, and we'll be
okay.
All right. Okay, Friendpreneurs, we are talking with Ari Collins, permanent tattoo artist, cosmetic tattoo artist, and her concerns about lack of representation in her industry. And the research that she has done and is doing is deep, and it's going to take a while, but we believe that networking is going to be a major factor. And hopefully, if you are listening and you know of anyone who might be able to help with this research, or someone who has some knowledge that Ari needs, let us know. We need to hear all of that from you guys. Just put that information in the comments. Meanwhile, we are going to continue our Friendpreneurship experiences. October 7th, our BFF, Dr. Erica Perry Green is going to come and answer questions for us in our live Ask a Friendpreneur virtual sip and share. That is October 7th at 6 p.m. I better double check that on the website. I know it's in the evening on October 7th. So double check it. It's friendpreneurship.com/experiences. She's going to answer all things entrepreneurship. Her specialties are publishing and branding and coaching. But as an entrepreneur of more than 20 years, she has a wealth of knowledge that she is eager to share with the entrepreneurial community. So whatever questions you have, bring them. If you want to send them in advance, you can send them to connect@friendpreneurship.com, and we will make sure she gets them ahead of time. But this is a live Q&A. You can join, bring a friendpreneur with you, and get your questions answered live. So that's what's coming up. You can also get involved with Friendpreneurship. If you'll go to friendpreneurship.com/follow-up, you'll see all the different ways to get involved. And that's if you want to be a podcast guest. You also can come on this platform to talk about your why so people may buy. You can be a sponsor of this podcast so that we can spread the word about your business or your vision. You can subscribe to our newsletter. There's so many different things that you can do, including join the Friendpreneur fam. So I'm going to bring Ari back for a few final words, and we appreciate your time this evening. Here we go. Okay, Ari, what would you like to leave Friendpreneurs with this evening?
Well, the first thing I would like to leave them with is for anybody who might be in my position where you have an idea about something and you're kind of feeling stuck about how to get started, just remember that your voice has value. Mm-hmm. The empathy that you have, even though it feels like a burden, just remember it's simply the weight of your heart preparing to blossom into a powerful gift for others. Your mm-hmm. voice has value. So whatever space you're in or platform you have to invoke change with your passion or your purpose, lean mm-hmm. into that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to put in our banner at the bottom. Let's get your website up here right quick in the banner. The copy paste, can you pop that in our chat, in that private chat right quick, and then I can grab it and put it in our banner because I want to make sure that's across the screen here.
My website address?
Yes, website address.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I will put it in the comments afterward because everyone, we are going to make sure that this podcast episode, the full episode, is on YouTube, on our Friendpreneurship LLC YouTube channel. So you will have all of this information at your fingertips. Okay, great. I'm going to grab this link and share it with you in the comments. This is how you can reach the intersection permanent cosmetics. salonlofts.com/the_intersection_permanent_cosmetics. Definitely let Ari know if anything comes to mind. Meanwhile, she and I are going to be working together to brainstorm, to think of ways to reach the audiences that she is trying to reach. And I think we came up with some pretty good ideas this evening. We'll follow up and keep this work going because I'm excited to see what's next. Thank you, Ari, for attending. Thank you for sharing your story. I hope that somebody sees it and reaches out. This is great. Woo, happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Have a good night.
You too. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.